you know, that last video we shot obviously got all that attention. It's not, you know, trailer hot shotter versus semi. That's really not the question here.
Zero doubt. But and the reality is, I mean, we can keep going on that, but when you back it up with mathematics and cost of ownership and cost of operation, and then you're comparing functionalities, it's stark contrast.
Phil with Sandcrest Trailer Sales here. So obviously a lot of you seen the big video that we shot about the build we done with the SDX and the hot shot truck. A lot of controversy over, hey, why don't you just buy a semi? So we decided to call up the trailer nerd, as he calls himself, Jacob Crabb. Came up from Texas, and we are going to go over a lot of the differences and talk about a lot of the different things between an SDX and a step deck and a semi, and what direction, you know, is best for everybody, because it's not a one-size-fits-all industry.
No, we're not saying that what we have to say today is the gospel, that it's the only way, but we just want to bring some light to the different use cases, applications, why one serves a purpose and the other one may serve it better.
So that last rig that we built, you know, we framed it up as its ultimate hot shot rig, because a lot of the stuff that we done on that build kind of retains to the hot shot industry, you know, the SDX and the hot shot bed and all that. That specific customer, they actually run kind of a more regional type deal. They do, you know, they do build outs on stuff, and they're moving their own equipment around. So that trailer gave them that versatility to be able to move equipment, move vehicles and other stuff around. For them, a semi just doesn't work. They're trying to get in and out of job sites. They've got tree limbs. They've got, you know, getting into wetter areas. You've got a trailer and a truck that weigh half what a semi does. It's just a lot easier, you know, piece of equipment for their application. And that's where, you know, whatever business you're in, you really got to look at what equipment you need for your application. And for that customer, that truck and trailer we built was absolutely perfect for what they were doing. So today we've got a Rettenauer 53-foot all aluminum step deck here. Not an exact comparison to the 53-foot SDX that we have here, but you know, we can put a little bit of reference between the two. We also have a new Ram 4500 and a new Peterbilt 589 over here. So we can kind of walk through the differences and get people to maybe see where this trailer is the better application for what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been serving the hot shot industry alongside you guys for many years, and how it's grown and evolved. You know, this SDX is like the pinnacle of the hot shot world. And there's just things, again, that it can do behind whether it's that Ram or a medium duty pickup or a single screw, you know, big truck that doesn't accomplish the same purpose as what you could do with this Rettenauer.
Yeah, so and that's a lot of what we see. So you get customers, and if they've got a big contract and all they're doing is just hauling general freight over the road all the time, needing to put 40,000 pounds on a deck and somebody's loading it for them, absolutely. You know, you're probably going to look at a step deck and a semi. That makes sense in that application. But, you know, the hot shot world, those guys are hauling a little bit of everything. And the big thing that they look for is the versatility with this trailer. And that's where this trailer really shines, because you can be hauling a tractor one day, you can be hauling a car, you can be hauling a tractor and a car, you can haul a container on it, you can haul pipe on it. There's just a lot of stuff that this trailer really shines.
Yeah, when you talk about like this particular one having a hydraulic dovetail, that type of trailer, like that's one thing that when they say just buy a semi, well, in cost comparison, for that kind of money you can just buy a semi. So when you start really looking at the numbers, which we've both done some research, you know, you've run a trucking company for
since 2004.
Yeah, so we understand the cost of these things, and yes, you theoretically could go buy a semi rig for potentially somewhere in the neighborhood if you got a used one, which is another comment we'll address. But you know, that new Peterbilt and a new step deck like this behind us is going to be a couple $100,000 more probably.
Yeah, you're going to be over. So that Peterbilt, you know, if you buy a new Peterbilt spec'd out like that one is, that's obviously a very nice truck. Top of the line, it's, you know, that's a $280,000 semi, and then you couple it with a brand new all aluminum step deck that's going to be $80,000 plus. There are cheaper options out there, but if you're looking new to new and you're wanting to go to the best of the best both directions, you know, or if you go to a Landall or a Trailey style trailer, like you see a lot of the rental companies, that's a hydraulic dovetail, you know, that's going to be a $100,000 plus trailer.
Yeah.
it also weighs about 18,000 pounds, where this one's going to come in under 12,000 pounds. So you get some weight comparison differences there. So it's a lot with what you're doing.
Yeah, it's really the whole phrase of apples to apples, right? When you're talking about a SDX with a hydraulic dove versus a straight deck 53-foot step deck like this, that's apples and bowling shoes. It's not the same, not in the same ballpark.
I mean, you guys can see behind us here, there's a lot of difference between that truck and this truck right here, and obviously even on the trailers.
Yeah, the visual of it says so much. We talked about functionality between the hydraulic dovetail and then you've got this straight deck here. Like you can visually see, it doesn't take a genius to see that you just can't do the things with this trailer that you can with this trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a night and day difference on this. This trailer here, you can load about anything you want on it without having any other assistance or ramps or anything. It's safer, easier to use.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the point of application. We're talking about apples and bowling shoes, not apples to apples.
Yeah, it's a whole different deal. And even with the pickups, you know, you step into the truck that you're going to pull this with, the versatility that you have with this trailer, you have to have a semi to pull this trailer. With this trailer, you can set up a 5500 or 4500 with a flatbed and pull it with this trailer the way it's set up. Like you said, you can put it behind a single screw tractor, you can put it behind a tandem. You know, you can run this over the road if you want behind a semi. So the versatility with this trailer, and maybe somebody coming into the business and they started with the gooseneck and they just keep elevating their business. This is that next step up before maybe you go to a different deal that still gives you that versatility that you don't get whenever you just have a 53-foot step deck.
Yeah. Getting more into like the cost factor when you're talking about insurance, overall maintenance costs. Now, yes, you were talking a little bit earlier about the overall mileage, comparing like a 5500 to what the mileage that you would get out of that Peterbilt over there. But the operational cost of the Peterbilt rig is going to be higher. And
yes.
So that's a big thing to consider when you're looking at one or the other. Is overall not just upfront investment cost, but when you're talking about running a business, what is your operational cost and your maintenance cost and insurance and those things? That's different worlds as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I own a fleet of trucks, so we run most of our trucks to right around that 500,000, 550,000 mile mark, and that's usually when we trade them off. That seems to be that cycle where you start getting into some extreme maintenance cost on those, whether it be the DPF system. You know, you can go 750 or so before you do a major engine overhaul, which on one of those, you know, you're going to spend $40,000 to do a complete in-frame. You know, if you want some warranty on it on one of those big trucks, you know, you're running more tires on that. There's just a lot more components. If that thing goes in the shop, labor rate at most of those shops, you're talking $185 an hour plus at a lot of them. You might be able to stroke somewhere that you can get $155, but your labor rate on working on that type of stuff is usually generally higher, and getting into some of those shops is a little more difficult as well. So your overall cost of ownership, you know, you can kind of weigh it out differently, but it really does come down to exactly what you want to do and what fits your need the best.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And what you aspire to be when you grow up.
Yes.
For your business. One of the other interesting facts or things that we have, you know, through all of this discussion is like the rate per mile on basic like step deck and tractor versus more specialized hot shot. I mean, we talked about the operational costs being higher on the tractor rig, and then the rate per mile though being potentially on average a little higher on the step deck rig or the hot shot rig.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on what kind of loads you can get. There's a big variable there. But if you look at your common rate out there right now, you know, you go in there and look, you know, the trucking industry has been struggling here for the last year and a half, pretty tough. We've seen an increase in rate. So if you go on the board, you're going to see somewhere around that 250 to 260 a mile is kind of what you're seeing a lot of the flatbed step deck stuff rolling in at. Obviously specialized stuff, you can get more money. So you can start seeing that higher rate per mile. You know, we're in the auto transport business, so we haul mainly buses and stuff like that. So we kind of fit into a different category with what we do with our trucking company. But somebody looking at a specialized piece of equipment like this, they have a lot more versatility on what they can haul. And so there's a good chance that they're going to be able to do better than what that standard rate that you're seeing with a step deck is. You know, yes, you're going to pick up 40,000 pound loads with this, but that does not mean that this guy right here that's hauling a 6,000 pound vehicle is not making more money per mile than you.
Dollars per pound.
No, you're not.
It's dollars per mile.
It is dollars per mile, 100%.
Yeah, the hot shot is still today. Its original. The original purpose of it was more expedited, like in the moment, like hot freight, and it's still largely what it is today. You would agree?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, that's kind of what it's based on, and also it's kind of taken and helping that LTL market. So with that LTL market, instead of having full load rate, you got full load rate. Full load rate is where you're going to see that 250, that 260 a mile. You start getting into LTL where you're putting pieces together, and now you're gathering, a small piece here that pays $1.50 a mile and another small piece that pays $1.50 a mile, and then maybe you can put another piece on that pays another $1 a mile, and now you're making $3.50 a mile rather than $2.50 a mile. And that's where it really shines with this equipment, with that versatility, being able to haul all those different products.
Getting back to that comment, I want to address the one comment about used equipment. We hear that quite often, because you definitely can go find a 10-year-old tractor with or whatever with 750,000 miles and a step deck that has decent mileage for what this rig cost, the rig you built the other day, but no warranty. And the maintenance cost, again, like we talked about a few minutes ago, is much higher should something go wrong. I mean, you're dumping money into it. And so what's your opinion on the whole used versus new in the hot shot?
I mean, we personally prefer to run new equipment. We like to know that first use of that truck and trailer to know what life it has seen, and put those miles on ourselves. We know the maintenance schedule. When you're buying a used piece of equipment, there's a lot of unknowns with that used equipment. You don't know how it's been maintained, and the first thing that you need to do if you buy used equipment is obviously spend the money to maintain it. So you're going to be buying that, and then you're going to have that upfront cost of maintaining that equipment, going through, checking the bearings, make sure everything's good. Probably going to need to put some tires on it, so you're going to have that upfront cost. Obviously, you don't have a warranty. With the 6-year warranty that you guys have on a structure on this, that's a huge thing. So you've got 6 years that if there's a structural issue with this trailer, it is covered under warranty. You buy something used, that's not there. So there's a lot that has to be said with the warranty, with what all these components cost today. So yes, I could buy a old used pickup and an old gooseneck trailer and go out and start hot shotting, and my cost to ownership is going to be extremely low, but my maintenance cost is going to start adding up. But it's not just the maintenance cost, and that's where people miss a lot of that picture. It's the downtime. So the downtime that comes with the used equipment, and we see that with our trucking company, as we start to get more age on our equipment, our downtime increases. And if that thing's not going down the road, you're not making money. So that newer equipment does pay in the long run with everything that we've done. And like I said, I've been doing trucking since 2004.
Yeah, I think that whole story holds true with the used tractor and trailer comparison as well. And what we said a few minutes ago is that largely this step deck rig, this SDX rig we're talking about, is probably not your guy that's just starting out. Like largely, like if you need lower cost of entry into the market and you're starting out, even buying new, what you just said, but buying a 40-foot gooseneck and a 1-ton and going to hot shot that way and getting your feet under you, that kind of thing, that's probably more, if you're that guy or that individual, that's probably more your jam to get going. And this is after you've really figured out where your niche is and kind of, again, figured out the hot shot industry, hot shot world.
Well, you have a lot of customers and some guys that's ambassadors of the brand that have done that. They came into the business and they have grown their business, and they realize that, hey, I can make more money with this equipment. And they've been successful, and they have successful companies out there, and they do very, very well. So there's proof to this. It's not just us trying to sell something to people. You have a lot of customers that you deal with on a regular basis, and they prove what you can do with this equipment. And if you're looking at something like this, you're not going to find anything that's better than what we're looking at here.
Yeah, it's when you say the proof is in the pudding, that old analogy, it is there. They wouldn't continue to to sell and to be used if the value wasn't there to back it up.
Yeah, your customer retention, once you get a customer into the Diamond C, it's really hard for them to move to another brand. And you know, there's a huge brand following with the Diamond C brand, and with the quality, and then what you guys do on the backside on the customer service side, that's what keeps people coming back to buying your brand. And you know, that's what people need to look at too, whether you're starting off new and you're just looking at a gooseneck, is find you a good dealer, find you a good brand, and they're going to take care of you.
Yeah, for sure.